Thank you, Zoe. I set a reminder for myself and completely forgot. So thanks for the reminder. Over to you, Alex.
Excellent. Thanks, Sean. So yes, most of you on this call will know about this commitment making process, but because we're all at different stages, we thought it was useful to give a bit of a recap. So as you know, this year is and was, because we're nearing the end, the Year of Action for Nutrition, which means that throughout the year, anyone from civil society to governments to academia, businesses can make a pledge to nutrition. And they had several opportunities to do that, but this Year of Action is really culminating at the Nutrition for Growth Summit on the 7th and 8th of December in Japan, where we are really calling for anyone to make significant and smart commitments to ending malnutrition. And for that, we need all stakeholders to answer this call, and we need you as civil society, as civil society, to mobilize our decision makers. So you'll find in the toolkit a link to how to make this commitment. So if you click on this link, and Sean, if you want, you can also share it on the call here. You'll see that it refers to how to make this commitment, whether financial, policy, programmatic, or impact. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be only financial. And across 3 key areas of the summit. The first one is around universal health coverage and the integration of nutrition within it. The second one is around transforming food systems to promote safe, sustainable, and healthy foods to support people and planet. And the third one is around resilience, addressing malnutrition in fragile and conflict-affected states particularly. And on this page, you'll see that there is a guide prepared by the government of Japan, available in French, English, and Japanese, and English. And there's also a reference to the Global Nutrition Report, who has developed a nutrition accountability framework. And this is very important because this is the first tool which includes a commitment registration platform and resources that has been endorsed by the government of Japan and which all commitment makers need to abide by. So they are legally, well, legally is a big word, but they are bound to respect this commitment and be held responsible for it. You will also see in this link the nutrition accountability tracker, where you can search through the filter and type your government, your country, sorry. Actually, sorry, I'm just changing windows now. Sean, would you mind opening the tracker? So the last link you see in the toolkit, so that we can show everyone.
Is it this one here? Can you see it on your screen? Make a commitment.
Yeah, so if you go down, you should see the link to the tracker. No, then take the link in the toolkit, please. Sorry.
Yeah.
The last link.
Yeah, sorry.
I just find it easier if people see it directly.
So this one here?
This one, yeah. All right, so if you scroll down on that page, you'll see that there's a search and filter box at the left. And for example, let's type Bangladesh just to show everyone.
Apply filters.
I don't know if there's anyone from Bangladesh on this call, but you will see that the Sun Civil Society Alliance has made a commitment and the government has made a commitment. And if you click, you can see the past commitments from 2013 and 2017, if they have committed, so that you can already see what your government or what other actors have committed to in their country. And just note that the new ones made this year are not yet made public because they will be at or after the summit. So this will give you a good idea of what your leaders have, or your actors have pledged, and how you can hold them accountable. Thanks for the demo, Sean. So yes, so we will now present you examples of how you can actually mobilize your commitment makers in making a smart commitment, and how you can do one yourself as well.
Thanks, Alex. And if anyone has any questions about the commitment making process, like I said, we have got time at the end, so hopefully we can answer any of those you have, but you can also share them in the chat box now. So just a quick guide, explainer of this guide. So throughout the document, we've broken down some suggested actions, and we've kind of broken down into 3 key areas. So we've got low level actions, medium level, and high level. Now, all of them have their own value when it comes to mobilizing, but it's important to think about where to use them and how to use them. So we're going to start off by talking about low level actions like digital mobilization. Those are the ones that we can often they can often be our first point of call, and they are important, but it's important to remember that whenever there's low effort, there's lower impact. So it's a good kind of entry point for your networks and your supporters to be taking a low level action, but just remember that it's not likely to have the highest level of impact on your decision maker. But we can then think about scaling up your actions to sort of like a medium level, and then the ultimate aim really is to be taking those high level actions, which is like direct lobbying of your decision maker. So we'll talk you through those in a bit, but hopefully it's important to kind of think about it with that hat on, that okay, I'm going to take a low level action, but remember that it's not going to have the highest impact. So with that in mind, I'm going to hand over to Zoe to talk about the first action that we've suggested, which is around Twitter mobilization. And I'm going to scroll down, so hopefully you can see that on your screen.
Yes, brilliant. Thanks, Sean. So as Sean said, there are things that we can do to mobilize our decision makers and our networks that require very, very little effort. But as you know, because I think all of you are very strong on social media, using social channels, especially as we lay out here on Twitter, is a really good way of directly getting the attention of your relevant stakeholders and your decision makers. So I think it's really important to remember that even though this is a low effort and potentially low impact, the one really good thing to do to really mobilize and really kind of push that advocacy message is to directly target the people that you want to see this message. So bear that in mind, that you really want to identify those key stakeholders and decision makers and find them on social media and make sure that all of this is targeted at them. So with that in mind, in the toolkit, we have laid out a really, really easy way that you can do this. And we've included a link and a recommendation to the tool Click to Tweet, which means that if you want to generate a tweet that you want to send out into your networks for them to push out as well, to really get that like high reach, you know, that high level of targeting your stakeholder, then you can use this tool where you just write in your tweet. And in the toolkit, we've actually got some examples. Yep, Sean wants to target Barack Obama here, which I think is definitely going to work. But we've laid out some example tweets for you so that you can send, just to make it so easy to send a personalized tweet. So using the suggested copy that we've got in the toolkit, it's all included in the toolkit, you can draft a tweet, create a click to tweet link, and then use that to share that with your network, so that, again, we're talking low effort here. All that your network have to do is to click on the link that you send them, and it will generate a tweet for them as well. So that's 2 really easy things, really easy steps that we have to take to make this. But really, really good way of targeting those stakeholders, outlining the things that you want to, that you want to tell them or that you want to ask them, and also then creating a really, really easy way of sharing this around your network and making sure that they can also do the same. So there's a few things in there which hopefully will be a really easy first step for you to do in terms of mobilization and advocacy, and it's all there in the toolkit for you to find and create yourself.
Thanks, Zoe. Hopefully that was a bit of a whistle-stop tour through how to do a click-to-tweet, but it can be it's all about making it as easy as possible for your networks. And hopefully you were able to follow as I was clicking through there. But this is basically, it's just a 3-step process that you can see on the toolkit here. But again, if you have any questions, you can give us a shout and we can talk you through it. Conscious of time, so I'm going to move on from the kind of low-level Twitter mobilization on to commitment making, which Alex had already started to talk about, but really it's about how you can make your own commitments. So Alex, I'll hand over to you now.
Yes, thank you, Sean, and thanks for the demo about the tweeting, because I didn't know about that, so I learn at the same time as you. Right, so the medium effort we suggested in this pack which is quite big in itself. It's about the commitment making, right? So as I said, we want our governments to make a commitment, but we can also show that we ourselves, civil society, are making our own commitments, whether financial or not. We are all working towards ending malnutrition, and we want to showcase it. So whether as an individual, an organization, a civil society alliance that you're part of, or a youth leader that you are, let's make those commitments as well to show that we ourselves can be held accountable. And if you plan, or if you have made a commitment to N4G, make it public, make it visible. For example, we've asked all those members that we know are making a commitment to N4G within the network to record a very short 15-second video so that we can display it at the summit itself. We have a slot for civil society, and this is our way to showcase all the commitments made around the world, from very grassroots organizations to INGOs. So do that, whether for the summit or for your own local or national level advocacy. Record yourself summarizing your commitment, take a picture with a board summarizing your commitment, whatever you feel will be useful and impactful. And then we also suggested that if you think relevant for your context, that you can also write a blog post or a policy briefing to explain the situation, your national policy context, but also the benefits of your policy recommendations. So typically in a blog post or in a policy briefing, we start with the problem without dwelling too much on it, because I think your government is aware, but really then focusing on the solutions, the programs that you're working on, the policy work that you're doing, the advocacy work, your outreach to communities, to youth leaders, to children and their communities, really showcasing promising practices that you know work at your community or national level that need to be scaled up in order to end malnutrition. And then you end up with 4-5 key recommendations, very clear, very short, targeting your advocacy targets. And when you have defined those recommendations, ideally as a group because it has more weight, or as an alliance, you can then show or share these recommendations on social media and other channels. In the toolkit, you'll see that we've pasted the link to a recent call to action that we made as a Sun movement ahead of the UN Food Systems Summit. And you'll see that it lists, it talks about the problem. And at the end, we have 5 key recommendations, which we felt as a Sun movement were extremely important to us. And the other link is a blog post that Zoe wrote after the UN Food Systems Summit, presenting again the key messages that civil society had at the summit and what we want to see next. So these are just examples for you, but we know that you will have tailored messages to showcase at the national level.
Thanks, Alex. So hopefully, yeah, that all makes sense. You can, I think it's a really great suggestion to think about how you can use creativity to to communicate your commitments, but also your recommendations for decision makers as well.
And great. Just on that, sorry, Sean, very quickly.
Yeah,
if you are interested in writing a blog or a policy briefing with recommendations, but you don't have anywhere for it to live, if your organization doesn't have a website that you have access to or anything like that, then please do feel free to send anything over to me. We can host any of these on the Sun CSN website, and then that will generate a link for you to share with your network or directly targeting your stakeholders on social media. So please do get in touch.
Great, and I think I'm right in saying that we'd also love to be sharing any of those links on our own social media channels and amplifying these posts that you'll be creating as well. So yeah, do kind of do share anything you want us to be communicating and amplifying. Brilliant. Okay, so moving on to our kind of higher level, although as Alex said, those last actions are also quite high level, and it can be quite a bit of work, but they're also really impactful. And then just moving on to those higher level, particularly for your networks, this is quite a high level ask, but it has a really great impact if we can be directly lobbying decision makers. To make this really easy, we've drafted some letter templates that really mean that you should only really have to do a little bit of work in personalizing them. So as I said before, this toolkit really thinks about how you can take action as an individual, but also how you can be mobilizing. So firstly, let's look at if you're writing a letter as an organization or as a CSA. So I'm going to open up this letter template, so you can just click that link within the document, and this first bit of text is just like a guide for you about how to use this document. You'll just need to click file and then make a copy, and then you'll be able to edit it yourself. We've suggested this kind of the black text as kind of core text that you might want to keep in, that should be applicable to all contexts, and then the yellow text that's highlighted is the wording that you might want to change to adapt it to your specific context and your policy demands. So really, it should only take a few minutes to just kind of personalize it. You can just say Mr. Johnson, oops, or whatever the title is, and then you can personalize it throughout. So this is if you're sending it on behalf of your organization, and then once it's finished, you can choose to kind of copy and paste it into a new email, or you might want to print it out and send it as a formal letter, whatever you think works best in your context. And then or as an individual, so in addition to sending it on behalf of your organization, you might want to send it just as yourself, or you might want to mobilize your networks to send it as individuals. So we've created another similar template. This text in green is for you to read before you send it out to your networks. And you might want to offer some kind of in some countries, you have directories of local decision makers. You might want to put that link here so that your networks can find their local decision maker quite easily and then personalize their letter. But again, it's a case of kind of going through and you or your networks can then just add the relevant details here. And then when they're ready, again, it's just a case of copying and pasting into a new email, which should hopefully, which is all outlined at the beginning of this document, which you can then also kind of re-emphasize when you share it with your networks. So it's, like I said, it's not as easy as a click to tweet, but it achieves a much higher impact, especially if we can have local decision makers who are suddenly I think a lot of decision makers don't really think that their constituents or that their community really care about nutrition sometimes. And it's really important to remind them that actually, yes, they do. And look, here's the breadth and depth of the support. Look how many letters, look how many emails they've received, reminding them about how much their constituents care about nutrition. So it takes a little bit more work to get this letter out and for people to complete it and share it, but it can achieve the highest impact. So I'd really encourage you to think about using that. So they're the kind of they're the suggested actions that we've outlined in the toolkit. There's also a useful key messages document. So we've tried to incorporate many of those key messages in the resources that we've just shared. But when you're creating your own communications and your own messages, you might want to draw upon this useful key messages document, which I'll just let Zoe just say a few words about. You're on mute, Zoe.
Hi, sorry. Yes, so not to confuse everyone with multiple key messages and sort of social media copy, but this we've included in here a toolkit that was created by a joint N4G task force. So hopefully you're going to see a lot of these assets and infographics around social media for the next month, because they were created by a number of organizations in the nutrition community. So these kind of key messages are very across the whole N4G movement, and inputted in by a lot of different organizations. Again, this toolkit has made it super easy. So if we just scroll down as well, Sean, to the, so these are all the context, all the messages. It's definitely well worth a look. But at the bottom, I think, or at one point, we've got again social media copy and assets. So again, making it very easy for you to incorporate everything, all of the messages in the document, all of the context and the background, but to use these assets to sort of make your social media posts a bit more engaging, a bit more informative. And there is suggested copy. So again, super easy to just copy and paste if you want to. The link on there directs you to the Nutrition for Growth commitment page, which we've had a look at earlier. So obviously, if that is a very good, very informative page, and one that you do want to flag for your stakeholders. But if at any point you want to make these messages a little bit more targeted, just remember all the things that we've talked about in terms of like atting your own stakeholders and decision makers, using any kind of more relevant hashtags to your national context or your regional context or anything specific that you're working on. So really, this is all just a jumping off point. It's designed to make everything super, super easy for you, and then you can tailor or expand or scale up in whichever way you want based on all the stuff that we've been talking about today in both toolkits. But yeah, so this is just another tool, another sort of useful resource for you to go to that is completely Nutrition for Growth focused and full of information. So yeah, not to overwhelm you, but just another place to look.
Thanks, Zoe. Yeah, I'm very conscious that it's a lot of information that we're sharing right now, but hopefully after this call you can kind of take your time and go through the toolkit at a slower pace. And like I said, always feel free to follow up with any questions, including around the key messages document as well. So we've outlined the actions and the key messages that you can use, and now we're just going to sort of remind ourselves of the timeline that we're working to here, because we're really now in this kind of key month of action. So I'm just going to hand over to Alex to kind of talk us through where we're at on this timeline and what that means.
Thanks, Sean. So the timeline is short, as you can see. It started in January, but we're now already in November. There are 4 weeks to go to the Nutrition for Growth Summit. So now is really the time to, if you haven't started yet, to mobilize your decision makers, to mobilize your own network, to make those commitments and to make them smart, as we said. So you have until the summit, December 7th and 8th, to make those commitments, so that they are officially recorded in the N4G report that will be released early next year, and for your commitments to also be registered in this nutrition accountability framework that we were mentioning at the beginning. So do use all these tips and others you might think of to do this advocacy work at your level and to mobilize your decision makers. Then we have the summit, of course. In Japan, nobody can attend in person. It is a virtual summit. But as I said, we made sure there was a meaningful slot for civil society to present their recommendations, but also to summarize the commitments that we are all making. I should have mentioned that the Sun Civil Society Network will make a commitment itself on behalf of the whole network, and the youth leaders for nutrition are also preparing one. So we really aim to be as visible as possible during the summit. There are also technical sessions at the summit where we wanted to showcase civil society, and we're putting forward names of speakers for the 3 different technical sessions. And then it doesn't stop here. And we need to ensure that the momentum continues, that it doesn't stop at a summit. The next phase will be continued advocacy, but mainly around accountability this time, because we want to hold our leaders responsible and ourselves responsible to our commitments. For your information, on the 18th, so next Thursday, on the 18th of November, the Sun Civil Society Network, together with ICANN, another coalition, we are working on, we will be organizing a side event on accountability, packed with examples of from different stakeholders, from civil society to businesses to government, on how to do accountability well, what works and what can be replicated. So do join this session next Thursday. We will send out the invitation after this webinar. And our plan is for next year to really make a big splash around accountability. We're even thinking of organizing a campaign to mobilize the network to hold your leaders to account. And we're even thinking of developing some kind of social accountability charter to help you with guidelines on how to do this accountability. And we are also compiling lots of examples of how accountability is done at different levels, and also to show that it's not a big word. It's just about entering a dialogue with your governments to make sure that their promises are upheld. So this is really the focus for us at the end of this year and the next. And over to you, Sean, I think.
Thanks, Alex. So that kind of covers the toolkit overall. I realized I didn't share the results from the poll to start with, so I'm just going to do that now so we can just gauge everyone's kind of confidence levels before we started this webinar. We've got a bit of time now for questions. I'm hoping there will be a few questions because it was a lot of talking from the front. Or, you know, I'd like to take this chance to invite you to share questions or perhaps reflections, because, you know, I really want you to see this toolkit as a draft. We can keep adapting this. We can improve it based on your feedback. Like, do you think this is actually going to be useful for you in your advocacy work in the next month? Are there any things that you'd like us to change or additional resources that you'd like us to produce, or is just any of it not clear? So would love to get your reflections now. If you'd like to speak, and if you'd like to speak, if you just want to raise your hand, and then I should be able to invite you to speak within the webinar. So if you look on your screens, you should see the raise hands function. Or you can also, where it says Q&A, you can also share any questions that you have, and we can get these answered. But equally, if no one's got any reflections or questions, then hopefully that means that it's all been quite clear and you've understood. Yeah, like I said, I just really encourage you to just we've obviously whizzed through this toolkit. I'd really encourage you after this call to just take some time to go through it at a slower pace, to read through it, click through the links, just practice taking the action and ask yourself, is this easy for me as an individual? And how easy is this for my networks if I share this? Is there anything I need to do to adapt this, to smooth the process, I guess? And then just really think about how soon can I get get these actions out? How soon can I mobilize my networks? Because as Alex said, like, time is really critical now, and we really need to see some meaningful action from decision makers. I can't see any raised hands or questions in the chat. I'll give people another minute or two just in case. I'll hold my hands up and say I'm not great with Zoom webinars, so apologies if this hasn't been super inclusive. I can see Emilita's said that the toolkit is a good guide and we'll try the suggested advocacy actions. That's great. Thanks for that feedback. Glad it's useful. I really hope this is useful. I mean, hopefully it goes without saying, you can always reach out to any of us. At the bottom of the document, I've included mine and Alex's email address. Hopefully many of you will have spoken with Zoe as well. And Zoe can offer some great advice on comms and on social media usage. So please feel free to reach out to any of us with any questions. We'd all be really happy to have like a one-to-one call and kind of talk you through some of these actions you can take as well. Zoe, did you want to say something?
Yes, I was just going to say as well, I know you mentioned this earlier, but we'd love to hear if anyone has already used certain techniques to mobilize their networks. You know, I know we're expecting a lot of commitments from some of your governments, so I wondered if anyone has been involved with that work or what kind of things that you've been using at the moment, because it's really great to learn from each other and see what's been successful. So if anyone wants to talk about any examples of mobilization that they have been doing this year in the lead up to N4G, then that would be very exciting.
Definitely, thanks, Zoe. We'd love to hear. Yeah, we'd love to hear from anyone on the call who's done that, and would love to be able to share that with the rest of the CSN. So please don't be shy and feel free to share. We just on commitments. Alex mentioned earlier that we are hoping to produce a video featuring everybody within the CSN their commitments, but we haven't actually received too many of them yet. So this is just a reminder to really think about how to sort of capture those commitments that you want to make. It really doesn't have to be long, doesn't have to be professional. We're just really looking to showcase just the breadth of commitments from our CSN. We'll also reshare those guidelines about how you can record those videos. So there's a question from Danstan. The toolkit should be available now, so it's hosted on our website. Alex has just shared the link again. I'll send a follow-up email to everyone on the call with the links to the toolkit. It's also worth noting that we have got it available in French and Spanish as well, and that will also be on the website. Some of the other materials, like the letter template, is currently only in English, but as soon as we receive a request for those to be translated, we're happy to arrange that. It's just we've been working flat out to get these out as quickly as possible, but that's definitely something we can do. So yes, that will get all the links to the toolkits and everything will be sent out after this email, but you should be able to view it. And Alex has shared the link already in the chat, so if you click that, you should be able to view it already, and all of the links within that should work as well.
Sean, we just have something in the Q&A from Pat, who says, I just wanted to know if there was any advocacy specifically around the Lancet Essential Nutrition Actions.
That's a good question. I might actually defer to Alex if I'm not familiar with the Lancet Essential Nutrition Actions. I don't know if you are, Alex.
No, so we've not focused on any specific advocacy. We kept it very broad on how to engage before, during, and after the Nutrition for Growth Summit. So we haven't gone into that amount of details, Pat.
I hope that's useful, Pat. But if you, I can see you've raised your hand, so I'm just going to allow you to talk. If you want to take yourself off mute, Pat. I think you came off and on mute there. You're back on mute. So do you want to just unmute yourself?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, can hear you fine.
Yeah, yeah. So I suppose particularly the Sun movement was focused around, inception was around the Lancet Essential Nutrition Actions that came out in 2008. And I suppose I haven't seen very much focus on the essential nutrition actions. Equally, on the first 1,000 days, there doesn't seem to be a lot of of specific advocacy. And I think this is important because if we're looking for governments to make commitments, surely we need to be clear what type of commitments we would like them to make. You know, the Food System Summit was around development orientated approaches, and it was said that nutrition for growth would be more around direct nutrition interventions. And I suppose we just haven't seen that focus. Thank you.
Sorry, I was on mute.
mute.
Yeah, sorry. Alex, I don't know if you wanted to respond to any of that.
Sorry, I was actually responding to your question in the chat.
Oh, no
I
worries.
missed that.
I think if I just jump in, I think one of the things that we definitely at the Sun CSN Secretariat, and especially with this toolkit, is designed for is really to sort of be quite broad so that people can specify and change things according to their national context. So I agree that, you know, we are really looking for very specific nutrition commitments at N4G, and we are really hoping that we will see a lot of those. But I think as a secretariat, you know, our commitment and our aim is really about helping and pushing for those when like within the national context. So I think that a lot of our messaging is quite broad, I agree, but I think that hopefully it's those country level, regional, national level commitments where we will see that specificity. You know, and I think we do have a lot of CSAs and who work on those very specific things which are relevant to their context, and I think that's hopefully where we will see those more concrete nutrition commitments.
Exactly, and maybe, sorry, Sean, go ahead.
No, sorry, Alex, you go ahead.
So just to complement, because we've been compiling all the summaries of commitments made throughout our network, well, at least some of them that we know, and there was a really broad range of commitments being made at very different level, from grassroots organizations to INGOs to civil society alliances to youth leaders, and they really all focus on the added value that they can bring at any level, which is really the beauty of our network. And ourselves as a civil society network, so the Secretariat is currently compiling our own, and we're defining 3 to 4 key commitments that, again, we are focusing on our value add. So really to amplify the work of these 4,000 organizations, how, for example, our role in ensuring this cross-country learning, in documenting progress, to inform policy and decision making. We want to focus on accountability, we want to focus on gender, on youth engagement. So this is really where we have an added value as a civil society network that other organizations or other network do not necessarily have. So I'm not sure this answers your question, Pat, but the idea is really to focus on what difference you can make as an individual, organization, or alliance, where we cannot necessarily put the funding like large multinational companies. We have different assets such as the outreach to communities, such as data generated by grassroots organizations and communities, etc. But I see you still have your hand up, Pat. So
Actually, I didn't know my hand was up, but I suppose the thing is that the Sun movement is the scaling up of nutrition interventions. So I suppose it's kind of difficult to understand why we're not promoting the essential nutrition actions more, given that these actions are based on research, and it is a scaling up nutrition intervention. Like the movement was founded on the premise of the Lancet 2008 interventions, the 10 essential nutrition actions. So I suppose because countries want to know what to do, And I think we've seen this with the multiple micronutrients now that the WHO has changed the guidelines, and this within a year, because of the WHO changing guidelines, we've got like 10 countries that are scaling up these interventions. So I think countries actually want, we work in India and we see that, I suppose we think they want guidance on what to scale up. And I think it was the same idea with the Food System Summit. We're not specific. What do we actually want to do? It's my comment. And I suppose we've been a continuing comment with the Sun movement. Anyway, I probably have said more.
No, yeah, no, you're totally right, Pat. And I just want to reassure you that through the individual organizations' commitments that I have seen, most of them refer to these nutrition specific and nutrition sensitive actions, interventions that need to be scaled up. I don't know if Danish, for example, wants to give the example of Nutrition International, but I know, for example, that they have committed to working on cases of anemia, as well as promoting the supply of vitamin A capsules. So, you know, they're very concrete in their commitments, all these organizations, and have even included the number of children or communities that they are targeting through these commitments. So hopefully all aggregated, all these commitments make up for a really strong Sun movement commitment as well through its individual members and individual networks.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that this summit is very much focused.
Danish, can you come closer to your mic? We can't hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
It's very faint.
So let me fix. Actually, I wanted to.
No, I'm afraid we can't hear you. Well, I can't at least. Sorry about that. Would you like to type instead, Danish?
Can you hear me now? Is it better?
No, I'm afraid not.
No issue. Then
Sorry. Must be the connection.
So I'm going to type.
Sorry, Danish. I think I think the connection has fallen off. But perhaps, as Alex suggested, maybe you could share your contribution in the chat, and we can try and capture that before the end of the webinar. Just reading through the chat, Emily just shared a great example of an action they've taken in the Philippines so far. There was a workshop that was organised by the government, but it seems like the Philippines CSA has really positively engaged and shared exactly what we've been suggesting people doing, like sharing your own commitment and kind of encouraging other decision makers to be following your lead and making their own commitments. So really great to hear that that's been successful and that you're going to follow up on that final commitment that the government will hopefully be submitting to. So really kind of reminding them that they're going to be held to account on these commitments. So if you've got any more information on that, Anita, we'd love to hear about it on this call now, maybe, or you feel free to share any kind of write-up you have of that, because we really want to encourage others to kind of follow your lead there, because that's a great example. I don't know if you want to share it now. No pressure. And Cecilia's also said that toolkit looks super useful and loves the suggestion about being creative in communicating our commitments. And it'd be wonderful to hear examples. I mean, like has been mentioned, the video is something that we're working on, but that's definitely not the limit. That's not the limit to kind of how creative we can all be. So other examples, I mean, if anyone has any other examples on the call, that'd be great. But I guess there are, you could do things like a stunt in your sort of town centre, or you could I'm just thinking off the top of my head, you know, just I think people should really challenge themselves to just think outside the box about communicating these commitments. You could do things around sort of like, you know, a padlock. I'm locking in this commitment. I'm in this for the long haul. There's also all different ways of kind of making a nutrition commitment exciting, because it doesn't, I guess it doesn't always sound like the most exciting things, but as soon as we get creative, it really can be, and it's a really great way to engage decision makers, but also just public audiences as well, and bring them on board too. Danish, I don't know if your connection is restored. We're reaching sort of the end of the hour, so perhaps it's a good time for us to. Sorry, Danish, do you want to try speaking now?
Yes, can you hear me? No.
The audio is very, very faint. So I don't know if others.
No issue. Then I'll type my comments in chat box.
That would be great. Thanks, Danish. So I think I'll take this chance to wrap up. Before I do, I just want to share another poll, because we started off just gauging everyone's confidence before looking at this toolkit and kind of before this webinar, and just I'm hoping I was actually quite impressed that there was already quite a good spread of confidence levels. I'm hoping now after this webinar people feel slightly more confident, but please be honest and say, actually, you know, if there are still things that you don't feel super clear on, you don't feel confident about, do let us know in the poll. And please follow up with any other reflections that you have by email, and we can, like I said, we can arrange a call and kind of talk through how to kind of make them clearer for you. And it would benefit everybody if you can be honest, because we can share any kind of improvements or new ideas with the rest of the network as well. So results coming in, kind of skewing towards the confidence side, which is good. We've got a few more experts, which is great. So I'll just do a very quick recap of what we covered today. So just a reminder, obviously, we've got the Nutrition for Growth Summit happening on the 7th to the 8th of December, which is less than a month away now. So this is a really, really important month for us to be taking action. And that's why we created this toolkit. We talked about the commitment making, and Alex gave a really good overview about tracking existing commitments and the kind of the success that those decision makers have had in sort of delivering on those commitments. So really encourage you to check out the commitment tracker and think about making your own commitment, like we've talked about, to kind of encourage the same action from governments and other decision makers. Then we kind of ran through the different actions. So you've got the click to tweet. Hopefully by following those processes, you can see how easy it is to kind of create your own pre-generated tweet that you can then share with your networks. And don't forget to use the suggested tweet copy that you can, all you have to do is just copy and paste it into the click to tweet. And then it's as simple as that. You can then share that generated link with your whole network. We've got the action of sort of taking your own commitment and pledge making, and then thinking about how to communicate those creatively. We talked about a few different ways you can do that, and then thinking about how to sort of publish that online. You can write a blog post and develop a policy briefing where you outline some of your sort of specific nutrition interventions that we were talking about just now. Don't forget to check out these examples on the links. And then you've got the higher level, sort of higher impact action of kind of letter writing or emailing your decision makers. You can do that as your organization or a civil society alliance. We've got this letter template here, or as an individual, you can take it yourself as an individual, but you can also mobilize your networks to do the same. And so if you click through the link on the document, you should see all the kind of step-by-step instructions about how to do that. Hopefully we've made it as easy as possible for you to do that, but once again, do share any feedback about how we can make it easier. Don't forget to check the key messages document, where you can see all the suggested social media graphics and copy that you can again lift and apply to your own comms. And here's just a reminder of the timeline. We've got just under a month till the N4G summit, but as Alex said, the journey doesn't stop there. Then the hard work begins of accountability and making sure that people live up to their commitments. And just a reminder, once again, please feel free to reach out and ask us any questions and arrange a call, because we'd be very, very happy to talk you through this toolkit or any other actions you can take. So we've just gone 2 minutes over. I'm going to wrap up there because I know people have got other meetings to join and places to be, but hopefully you found that useful. And do get in touch with us afterwards, and remember to click through the links as well. I'll send an email with all of the links and resources. I don't know if Alex and Zoe, you had anything else you wanted to add before we wrap up?
No, just to say a big thanks to everyone for joining. It was great to have you and hear your examples as well. Do contact us if you have any questions or any suggestions, or if you want to send us a video of your commitment.
Thanks, Alex. And so I'll wrap up there. Thanks so much for everyone for joining, and thanks for your helpful kind of contributions and suggestions in the chat. And we'll definitely be taking those on board and thinking about how we can apply that to the toolkit and to other actions everyone can take. All right, thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day, whatever time it is, wherever you are. And let's speak soon about any actions you can be taking in your country. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Dawn. Bye, everyone.